All right. Well, hello, good evening, and good morning, and good afternoon, somewhere out there in the world. This is the Face of a Hero show, Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time with yours truly, EVE from the region and beyond. And I have an amazing guest today. He's very busy. And so I have to get him when he is available and he says yes. And I'm thankful that he said yes. And I said amen to that. I'm going to read synopsis, actually his whole bio, because when we're dealing with a public servant or servant leader, I can actually speak for myself. And the same thing, and I'm sure he will agree with me, is that we don't tend to say all the good stuff that we do for others because it's not about us. It's always about the others that we do for, that we serve, right? So I said, let me make this a point to read his whole bio. This is not going to bore you, especially if you are a public servant or you like to help others as well, because he truly is the face of a hero. This is his second time around coming because he just never ceases to amaze me with all the wonderful things that he's doing in the community and beyond. And of course, I'm not going to bring his name up yet until I bring him to the platform. And I'm just going to give you his bio real quick. And so this gentleman, brother in Christ, was raised on the east side of Gary, right around the corner from me. Little did I know. In the Emerson area. He graduated from Horseman High School and lifelong resident of Lake County, Indiana. He is married to a beautiful wife, has 7 children. They were busy, weren't they? They have 4 sons and 3 daughters, and of course, 10 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. That's a busy family man, if you ask me. But he's a family man all over. Not just with his immediate family, but he's also a member of the St. Mark Missionary Baptist Church in Gary, Indiana for over 40 years. He's also served over 31 years in the Indiana State Police and currently serves as commander of Capitol Police and security operations for the Indiana State Police under Superintendent Anthony Scott. He's responsible for managing the overall enforcement and security operations within the Indiana government complex and state of Indiana government properties, which includes the Indiana State Capitol, Indiana Court of Appeals, Indiana Supreme Court, Governor's Office, Lieutenant Governor's Office, and Judges' Chambers, the Indiana Government Centers, North and South, and parking garages, the government's residence, the Indiana War Memorial, the White River State Park, Indianapolis Zoo, and parking lot, Monument Circle, USS Indianapolis, Military Park, Indiana Department of Health, Indiana State Police Laboratory. His responsibilities also include supervision of the Capitol Police Section Assistant Commander and command staff, CPS personnel, and State House Legislative and Liaison Security Officer. So between 2014 and 2024, he was working under the leadership of Superintendent Carter, primary staff as the capacity of the Assistant Chiefs of Staff of Logistics. He was responsible for overseeing the maintenance of over 300 million plus in assets for that department, which includes 13 state police posts, facilities, grounds, 4 regional laboratory facilities, general headquarters, aviation hangars, fixed wing and helicopters, microwave towers and buildings, 1,800 vehicle fleet. That's a lot. I'm already getting tired just reading everything that he has done and is currently doing, also including specialized vehicles, gun ranges, quartermaster, vehicle parts, and inventory, etc. He was also responsible for overseeing the construction of 3 new laboratory post-construction process, each valued at $30+ million, located in Fort Wayne, Lowell, and Evansville. In January 2023, now you might guess who I'm talking about because of what I'm about to say, which is when I had the privilege and honor of meeting this young man because of this movement. In 2023, he took a 6-month leave of absence from the Indiana State Police Department to serve as an interim chief of police for the Gary Police Department. For all my GI people, here's some education in case you didn't know, and around the surrounding cities as well. On October 23rd, 2023, he received the 2023 Governor's Public Service Achievement Award for the Indiana State Police from Governor Holcomb for his work and efforts at the Gary Police Department for from Gary Police Department during the 2022-2023 year. And on December 5th, 2023, he was awarded the key to the city of Gary by former Mayor Jerome Prince for his work and efforts at the Gary Police Department during the years of 2022 to 2023, to include him as at that time, the interim chief. On January 1st, 2024, he also received the award for the Morning Fellowship with Reverend Dr. Wayne L. Moore Community Service Award in recognition of his outstanding community service above and beyond the call of normal duty. Above and beyond the call of normal duty. That's something that we have to really pay attention for, those heroes, that unsung heroes that do that. He's also served a variety of positions in the ranks during his tenure while employed by the Indiana State Police. Following the graduation from the academy, he was assigned to the Lowell Post Road Trooper, Community-Oriented Policing Officer, Northwest Indiana FBI-led Gang Task Force Officer, Gaming Officer, Motor Officer in the departments of the Motorcycle Unit, or as he would say, motorcycle. I wanted to do that today, but I gotta love this person. Anyway, in 2004, he also was promoted to the rank of sergeant to serve in the Fiscal Division and Research Contracts Grant Officer. While at the rank, he also served as a liaison officer between the Department of Indiana and in the Indiana Department of Corrections, Criminal Investigation Division, and the Human Resources, primarily assisting with the trooper selection processes. In 2007, I'm almost done, folks. In 2007, he was promoted to rank as first sergeant to serve as an internal investigator to include equal opportunity, employment opportunity, investigations. And in 2011, he was promoted to the rank of lieutenant while he served as the district commander of the Lowell District, which is the second largest district in the state of Indiana, in case you guys didn't know. And prior to joining the Indiana State Police, Major served in our community here in Lake County as the correction officer with the Lake County Sheriff's Department. In addition to graduating from the Indiana State Police Academy, Major also attended Indiana University Northwest. He is a graduate of the FBI National Academy, and he's a 253rd session in Quantico, Virginia in 2013, as well as numerous other training schools and courses. Most recently, he was graduated from the Indiana Law Enforcement Police Chief Training Program in April 2023. He is a member of the IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police, FBI National Academy Associates National and Indiana chapters, the NOBLE, which is National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, and the Gary, Indiana NAACP branch. He is also off duty, in his off-duty time. I don't know where that time fits in with everything I just read. Was that an hour out of the week off duty? He is a broker, a real estate broker, owner of Williams Executive Realty and Associates, LLC. He's involved also in the initiative focused on supporting the lifestyle African-American males in the Northwest Indiana region, known as the My Brother's Keepers of Lake County, Indiana. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I'm going to bring up to the stage Major Jerry Williams.
Thank you so much.
In hearing all of this, let me ask you, how do you feel? Because sometimes we don't realize how much we do until someone's reading what we do.
Well, I will tell you, my personality is just what you probably imagine. I often say, wow, God is good, right? Because I look back and I hear and I see the printed material of my travels and my journey up thus far in my career, and I just say God has really just been good to me, because I couldn't have told you what those paths were or what each of those steps and journeys were going to take and lead me to, because I always just had that servant heart, I guess, for lack of a better description, and I always found myself trying to do something bigger than myself. And maybe that's why it would be hard for me. If you asked me to summarize my bio, it would probably take me about 30 seconds, because I'd probably skip over half.
Oh, I know. And I just felt in my spirit as I asked you off stage if I can read your whole bio, because most cases as an MC, we don't read that long of a bio, but I felt it for some reason necessary for our guest, our viewers to really know your background history of where you come from and all that you've done and accomplished and the awards that have been given to you. To be honest, if you ask me, I don't think they've given you enough awards, but I know who gives you the main big
Absolutely.
award is who you mentioned in the beginning, our creator, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to thank you and bring you back on this platform to say you are the face of a hero, an unsung hero, because many people don't know you globally, but many people know you globally, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Those that need to know you know you. And I'm hoping that by bringing you back on this platform, we get to hear a little more of insight of behind the scenes with Major Jerry Williams, because we take you, men in blue, if I can call you men in blue, because that's usually a police officer, are unnoticed. People don't have empathy for you. People judge the book by its cover, meaning if there's one isolated incident, you all pay the price for it. And I've seen that happen many times, where now you are risking your life because there was an incident where a police officer shot and killed an innocent bystander or innocent person, right?
Right.
And so this is where this show came about, Major. I don't know if I told you, which is why it's called The Face of a Hero. It was intentionally first for just first responders, mainly men and women of blue.
Okay.
For that same reason, because you don't have that platform to tell us how does it really feel to do your job. I mean, some I know suffer from PTSD. You've seen things that you don't imagine seeing other than the movies, but you see them for real. You see tragic accidents. You've seen the unheard, right? And so this platform is for you today, Major. You all heard me read his bio, but I have some questions about who really is Jerry Williams behind the scenes, meaning as a family man, do you even have time to enjoy, to have fun?
I do. I will tell you that. So I have a large sibling base myself, and so we're very close throughout even though we spanned in age quite a bit. My father would be over 100 years old if he was with us here today.
Wow.
So we go back quite a bit. I have siblings old as most folks' parents of today, if that makes any sense. But with that being said, I always raised my kids to do the same. We really did raise them to try and always be each other's keeper. And they wasn't allowed to fight with each other, but they were always there to support each other and defend each other for things doing right in that respect, and hold each other accountable if they did something wrong. And that's kind of how we brought them up. And to the day, as a result of that, today they are very close knit bunch. They spend a lot of time in their off hours with each other. If it ain't them, but just throwing something on the grill and sitting around watching a football game or something together. So those are probably some of the most proudest things that take place for me behind the scenes. And those 10 grandkids, Eve, that you talked about. Now, I don't think they'll hear this. So they think I like them, and I haven't figured that part out yet. But nevertheless, I enjoy them because I can. What parents say, you can take them, you can spoil them, and then you can send them back. So they have been a blessing to us, and my great grandkids are still a little bit on the young side, but again, of course, we enjoy the opportunity and being blessed to be able to help spoil them a little bit along the way as well. So, and then my pastime is really those things and I encourage anybody, is particularly in law enforcement, to find something that you can disconnect from law enforcement. Because you in law enforcement, I will tell you, most police officers will tell you they see some of the worst of things in life. You face and see evil firsthand, and when I say evil, when people do things to other people, sometimes their own relatives, you can only describe that as evil. or horrific or catastrophic crashes and where people perish in accidents, etc. You don't get a chance to erase that from your memory. So you have to find a balance outside of the workplace to be able to disconnect from that world and to try and have some sense of normalcy outside of that law enforcement platform, in my opinion. I think it makes you for a healthier person. And surrounding yourself with family and things you enjoy doing certainly lends well to those efforts.
I don't know how much time that you take out of the day, week, or month to do that you care and you love about, which is family. And I know that you are a true family man. I've got the blessing of meeting some of your children and your lovely wife in the past, and so I'd actually like to interview her, see what it's like to be married to someone as busy as you, you know. And how long have you been married, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh God, you would ask me that on camera. Um, yeah,
If you care to answer.
on paper, I don't know, 38, 39 years on paper, maybe.
Wow. I
Yeah.
got to ask her, how does she do it?
Uh,
You
yeah.
take a lot of time on the road. From what I heard that you told me before was like you travel to Indy just about every day back and forth, right?
Yeah, my journeys throughout my career has taken me to Indianapolis as a home base where I work out of several times throughout my career, particularly in the last 15, 16 years of that. So when I was doing internal investigations, those are statewide investigations. So there was only a group of about three or four full-time internal investigators, and so we handled the worst of our internal investigation cases. So you go wherever that case is. It could be clear down in Evansville, Jasper, Indiana, or all the way up north here in the Lowell District, which is Northwest Indiana. So you kind of travel. So, but my base was still technically for those 3 or 4 years, 5 years, whatever it was. My home base for work, it was out of Indianapolis, out of our headquarters. And of course, when as a young sergeant, when I first went down there, um, again, my home base for that 2 or 3 year stint, when I was working in our fiscal division and writing grants and managing grants for our agency, and then became a grant writer to help other components of state government write grants. That was another stint that I did that so and as well too, and then eventually I moved back when I had an opportunity to compete for the commander's position here in the Lowell District, and that was my opportunity to come back home. And I did that for just shy of 4 years before being invited down to our executive staff, and I was accelerated to the rank of major under Superintendent Dan Carter and then Governor uh, Mike Pence, now, of course, respectfully, former Vice President. So, and then I spent the last 12 years down there as the longest tenured executive staff. And so, again, to that point, all of that was commuting. And so you asked the question, why not just move? Well, first off, the reason what gravitated me to that area is that because of our rank structure, there's only so many opportunities for promotions and advancement in your local district area. If you want to advance, and I always had a personal drive to want to be in a policy making position because I wanted to be able to do, again, something bigger than myself. And certainly being in a policy making position allows you to affect your culture within the agency and to be able to help work towards advancements within your agency. Obviously, being an African American, that I don't take that lightly. I know I stand on the shoulders of a lot of other black and brown troopers that came before me, and so I hold that respect dear to my heart, and I try and make sure I'm always finding myself to do something, again, to help others, encourage others, to take promotional tests, to better themselves, to be prepared for advancement, encourage them for advancement, even if it means they may have to move out of the area. So, Eve, I'll tell you this here. So one of the biggest questions they say, well, why not just move to Indianapolis.
Yeah,
That would
down
have been
south.
the easiest thing to do.
Right.
But there was a few things that kind of kept me grounded here at home here in Lake County, and one is that so most of my kids through college when they left IU Bloomington, etc., kind of gravitated to that Indianapolis area. So my youngest of my four sons are identical twins, and they're both lieutenants and troopers out of the Indianapolis area. So they naturally gravitated back there after college. My third oldest is a safety engineer. Used to work up here for BP Oil, and then he found another job in his field down in Indianapolis, based out of Indianapolis. So then that does he ended up gravitating to that arena as well. So that's kind of how they all gravitated down there. But the things that kept me up here was I asked God as a very young person. My mother passed away in the '60s, and my dad raised up 12 of us, seven that were still underage, and he raised us by himself. He didn't
Wow.
remarry, and he self-taught himself to cook
Wow.
and could probably outcook most women I've ever
Right.
crossed in my
That's
life.
commendable.
And
Wow.
worked in those steel mills. He retired out of, for folks that remember, out of Rockwell International, which was located right there at the intersection there, the traffic light at I-65 and US 12 and 20. The sheet metal place, and I may not have that correct, but that used to be Rockwell International, which of course Rockwell International was a partner or a part of Boeing, the airplane company. So at any rate, I asked God. I says, I want to be able to take care of my dad the way he took care of us, and he was such a role model, not only to us, just that hard worker, never was around drama, didn't like being around drama, always was about taking care of family first, and the whole community saw that in him. I mean, the other parents on my neighborhood just they admired him because he was here. There it is, Mr. Williams, and he's got his kids all loaded up in the station wagon. If one went, they all went. That
Yeah.
type of philosophy, and so I said I'd like to take care of that guy one day, whenever that time comes. And so God kind of prepared us through these processes, because then we took care of my mother-in-law, who suffered a major stroke and became bedridden. And so we took care of her. And while I worked out in Annapolis, uh, I'd get off in the evening hours. By 5 o'clock, we were in Gary at her house, and we took care of her from about 5 o'clock in the evening to about 5 o'clock in the morning. Then
Wow.
we'd leave, go get the kids ready for school. I'd leave going off to Indianapolis, and we did that for about 18 months until she
Wow.
made her transition. And then it was like God prepared me
For the
for
next.
the next
Right.
of what became known to me later in life as the caretaker, right? And so so my dad, who was staying out in his apartments in Maryville, um, realized that he was sick and that stuff, even though he didn't tell us he didn't really confide and say, hey, what he thought was wrong. But nevertheless, God had prepared us to do that first journey. So when he took sick, I moved him in with me, and took care of him. The doctor said 3 months, and so he lived closer to 2 years.
Wow.
And so and we treated him like a king. That guy would
That's
would tell you
beautiful.
he was here today. He didn't want for anything.
That's
And
beautiful.
and then one of my sisters, then later, shortly after he passed, took ill with brain cancer, and she chose to not put that burden of her, taking care of herself on her kids, who were in different places of the country. So I moved her in with me, and I had the
Wow.
pleasure and the honor of taking care of her after she had just helped me take care of our dad, and up until about the last 4 to 5 weeks, 6 weeks of her life.
Wow.
as well, and then we moved it down in Annapolis, and then as fate would have it, then I lost another sister and then another brother who I had the honor and pleasure of taking care of those folks as well, and it just like it became so easy and so normal place for us and for me that I didn't look at it as the caretaker. It was just something we did. It's just something we
Right. So by saying that, let me interrupt you for a minute, Major. How did you balance that between, I mean, because I was a caretaker of my mom and dad as well as raising two children as a single mom. I wasn't on the road as much as you were, right?
right.
But how did you balance? Did you struggle? Did you have a hard time knowing that it could happen anytime, especially when they gave your dad 3 months? But the devil is a liar. God says when 2 years. How about that? From 3 months to 2 years, that's a big difference. Were you at times on the road or down in Indy thinking of your loved ones? Did you get calls where you had to rush back? Things like that? Because I know that your mind has to split family and work.
It did, and to your point, yes. Quite often, I could be in Indianapolis, and me and my dad were very close, as you could probably imagine. So we were on the phone with each other constantly, even from driving or down in Indianapolis. We were always on the phone. My siblings and I were always on the phone. It could be 2 o'clock in the morning. Somebody just calls and says, "Hey, I got a prayer for you," and we're up at 2 o'clock in the morning. So that's just the way we were with those times. And so yeah. Did I get those calls every once in a while and have to divert from my travels to Indianapolis to come back home to tend to something like that? Absolutely. But I tell you what though, Eve, I could tell you that those occasions when they happened didn't seem that stressful, and I really again everything happened and has happened only by faith of God. Because, and the reason why I say that is because I was working in a capacity during most of that time frame that allowed me the flexibility to uh, move around, to take care of family, to take time off work when I needed to, because as an internal investigator, I'm setting schedules, I'm setting interviews. Well, if I know I got to be at the VA hospital, I'll set those interviews and make sure that I take care of those before, that type of good stuff. But it was not as stressful, maybe because it's just the pattern and the path that God had put me on. Now, when I became the district commander, and that only happened after my father passed away, and I thought, that was just it would because that position became available about a month after he passed away, and it was almost like a sign that says, okay, all right, you got time now. You can go ahead and do something else within the job itself, and so and I think only after those obligations and those commitments to take care of others that next door opened up.
Wow. So now let me bring this heart to heart conversation. You, as an officer,
Mm-hmm.
law enforcement, have you had a tough moment? As I was explaining earlier, why this show for the unsung heroes, for the men and women in blue, of blue, you guys go through things in your own career. Can you give us a moment where you actually thought twice of continuing? Did you have a moment where it was very heartfelt because of either someone got hurt, shot, killed, what have you, in your line of duty?
Hmm. I I don't know that if I had the closest that I got to that moment was probably back in '95. So in 1995, uh, we were requested or directed to come into Gary to help with some patrol capacities in the city of Gary. And during that tour or that assignment, a few days into it, I was involved in a head-on crash with an individual that was being chased, that was fleeing and being chased by the Gary Police Department for attempting to stab his wife. And so we were just deploying down into the city when this pursuit started, and this was over 30 years ago. So radio communications isn't as as good as it is today. The
Right.
technology has come a long way in 30 years. So a lot of the communication on that pursuit, which is going very fast by the second, was done sometimes almost over the telephone. Where if you could imagine if you got a pursuit that's traveling at 80, 90, 100 plus miles an
Ooh,
hour, and you're trying to, and the radio folks have to relay that to the next
right.
individual on a telephone, you have a delay there. To nobody's fault. It's just the way the systems was at the time. So at any rate, me and the subject, um, I was on Fifth and Jackson going traveling east on Fifth Avenue near Mercy Hospital there, which was still open, of course, at the time.
Hmm.
And the individual was traveling against traffic and intentionally directed his vehicle into my path. We had literally hundreds of police officers out there, of course, because
Wow.
we had just deployed into the city. It was at least 60 troopers itself, not counting the other police agencies that had joined that pursuit. And so me and the gentleman met head on, and that individual did not survive the crash.
Wow.
I was pent inside my police car, which was on fire at the time,
Oh my.
and so there was only a very small window of opening for them to get me out of the car. And those some Gary officers found that opening, and while other police officers were using their fire extinguishers to put the fire out and to keep the fire away from me while they try and extricate me and get me out of that car. Um, those were probably the moments there because we all think we have some understanding that there is we hope that some kind of way there's some type of life, right? So
Right.
I
Right.
don't know that I'm dead or alive at that point.
Wow.
I know my body is numb. I could feel the blood running down my face,
Wow.
and I hear people out talking and yelling and for fire extinguishers and trying to get me out. I could feel people touching me, but again, in that instance and in
Wow.
that moment, you don't really know. You don't know what death is, right?
Right. Right. Right.
And so eventually they get me out, and I realize, okay, I'm still alive, and all the way to the hospital, the doctors and surgeons said they didn't know that I would whether or not I would survive through the night. They couldn't figure out where all of the internal bleeding was going. My feet went through the floorboard of the police car
Wow.
through the impact. And so they didn't know that if I could live, whether or not I could walk again. And
Wow.
if I could walk
Mm,
again, could I
mm.
ever return to work and that kind of stuff. So those, if I had moments to describe that story, if I had
Wow.
moments of doubt on whether or not I could remain or stay in police work, that was probably the moment that I had those questions because laying in that hospital room, not knowing that if I could, would I be able to walk again, and that kind of stuff was probably the times when I had those moments that I left it in the hands of God, because
Amen.
that's
Wow.
what.
How long were you there, Major?
Um, I was in intensive care, I think around 9, 10 days, and then I got out the hospital, and I it took me about 7 to 8 months to be able to walk without a walker, but probably within a year, I was able to walk and start to run again, and I was back to work probably from the crash about a year and a half later.
Wow. Did you suffer any PTSD? I mean, it's trauma, one thing to your body, the other is to seeing that car coming on to you head on. It could be major trauma for people, even in the future, 10 years later, 20 years later, that they still feel some type of fear of being on the road. Some people stop driving because of an accident. Did you ever
They
feel anything
do.
like
Early off, when just getting back behind the wheel of a car and starting back to drive again and getting used to having being like on 2 lane roads where you got traffic coming at you and stuff like that. Of course, there's a psychological and in my opinion a mental adjustment to
that? Right,
that
right.
process.
Wow.
And from a long term perspective, I'm very fortunate. I'm just totally blessed that God saw fit for whatever reason to leave me here on this earth for a little while longer. But it's not lost on me that another person's life perished in that crash.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he had that individual has family, his loved ones, and he has a
Right.
parent, somebody out that loves him as well, and that lost as well. So that that's not lost on me either, because never never when people have to die in those type of situations is it really ever good
Right.
for any
Right.
side.
No, for sure. Is there anything you'd like to use? This is your platform. This is the time that you can open up to the audience to get to know you as an officer, as a public servant or a servant leader, as a husband, as a father, grandfather. Anything you'd like to share here, but most of all, getting to know what it's really like to be in your shoes as an officer, the call of duty, law enforcement.
Probably the best way I would describe that question is being in law enforcement, maybe not so much for this generation of law enforcement, but certainly I would say everybody that comes from my generation or before in law enforcement would probably all tell you the same thing, and that this is a calling. You don't get into law enforcement because you want to get rich. You're not going to get rich in police work. So you have to want to do something bigger than yourself, in my opinion. And everybody would probably say the same thing: is that this was a calling. I watched at a distance as a young person. I had two uncles, one great uncle, one immediate uncle, both Chicago police officers. Two of the first African American Chicago police officers back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and so watching those two gentlemen every time we go over to Chicago and visit with them, I was just amazed that they were bigger than life in those police
Mhm.
uniforms and stuff. And so it for my passion for wanting to get into law enforcement probably started at a very very young age, wanting to help people. My dad would always he said, "Man, I always know where to find you." He called me Lucille from the country song, Kenny Rogers song. He said, "Lucille, I always know I can find you somewhere helping somebody, cutting some grass, doing something for somebody." He says, "What makes you do it?" I said, "I don't know, Dad. I guess it was just I had the time and it needed to be done." So
Mhm.
that probably that spirit of being a servant probably started pretty early in life.
Yeah, I would say so from what I'm hearing. And of course, you have to have a heart for it. I believe it is a calling from what I've been seeing and learning more about you, Major. And I want to thank you for your service, for giving that many years of service to others, to strangers, to people that might even take you for granted or can care less about you. You're there as a call of duty to do what you're supposed to do. And what I'm hearing is you saw the need and you went and filled it.
Yes, I would say that's correct.
Yeah. And so I want to thank you for your time. I know that your time is valuable. These minutes that you've given us here in the face of a hero, we thank you for letting us know more about you and who you are as a person. And, but one last question, because I know your time is ticking.
Mhm.
Um, where do you see yourself now between what 3 to 5 years from now? What would you like to accomplish if there's anything?
Well, getting myself through these next cycles is always important. When I say cycles, I mean life events, whatever that might be. But in the short term here, in the next 3 to 5 years, right now I've entered into the sheriff race here as a candidate for Lake County Sheriff,
Okay.
and I plan to win. And
Okay. Speak
so
it.
so
Speak it into
that
existence.
that yes, that next 3 to 5 years will include my time with the Lake County Sheriff Department, which how ironic is that, taking me all the way back home from 35-ish years ago, back home to Lake County Sheriff Department, where I felt started my law enforcement career. So that's what I plan to do over the next 4 to 5 years
Okay.
is get in there and do as much as we can in those 2 terms that I plan to achieve. Surround myself with good people, good-minded people that want to do good things for the community and something bigger than themselves. And I certainly believe that God is blessing me with folks around me right now that says that this is possible, and this is the right thing to do for the right reasons. And we're going to go in there, and I think we can change the perception and the reality that Lake County is not a place where um, the criminals can seek easy prey. We want to make them fear us, and not so that our community can thrive, so that our economic base can thrive, so that we can have growth within Lake County and become an example for the rest of Indiana. And I certainly believe with my travels across the country and working with other communities under different circumstances with their platforms that we have an opportunity here in Indiana, in Northwest Indiana, to become the examples for the rest of the other 91 counties in Indiana. And I would offer to you for other communities and other states to follow as well.
That's wonderful. And I think you already have shown some of us what changes you are capable of making based on when you were in Gary, Indiana, supposed to be for 6 months. And how long did you stay in Gary?
Well, that relationship was only supposed to be for 3 months.
Oh, 3 months. I'm sorry.
But it was only supposed to be for 3 months, but it turned into 18 months.
Wow. There was a need. And I
Yeah,
think you saw that, right?
yeah, we did, and our goal was not to change, not to turn the Gary Police Department into the state police, because that certainly would not be fair to that
Right.
community, that police department, or that culture. However, what can we do to bring additional resources, training, and those sorts of things to the table to just help the agency structure themselves and within their own culture, maybe just with some guidance that might help along the way to get them there. So yeah, that's then actually the first year I spent kind of as the coordinator by way of the state police, and as we brought people in and out, and that just was not for the police department. We also expanded that to bring in resources by way of Governor Holcomb at the time to help out in other areas. So, for example, we brought in Department of Highway, because you have all of these state-owned properties, highways and roadways like Broadway, which is State Road 53, US 12 and 20, that belong to the Indiana highway. So, what are they doing to make improvements on the stretches of highway that come through Gary? Traffic lights, curbing, sidewalks, all of that stuff. So we tried to even tap into some of those resources that while we were here, let's see if we can't fix this, our community, my community that I still call home, from the inside out. And so it did expand beyond the walls of the police department. And we did try and target some of those other areas where we felt from a state perspective, we could leverage some state resources to help our community out there.
Well, I want to say thank you. Thank you for what you did for my city that saw me grow up where I was raised, which is Gary, Indiana. Unbeknownst to us, I think I may have seen you pass by a lot of times, not knowing it was you down the same street. But I thank you. If there's anything else you'd like to share, take another minute. If there's nothing else, we thank you for your service. I thank you for your service and for what you're doing, what you've done, and what you are going to be doing in the future. And of course, Lord willing, you'll have that seat. If that is His will, it was meant for you.
Yeah, it is. No, thank you. The only thing I would say is thank you, Eve, for your platform, what you do with this platform. And I've had an opportunity over the last couple of years to watch you out in the community and abroad, and to always see you as a young lady that's out there advocating for others, which to me is a servant's heart. And to that point, I truly appreciate you. I appreciate your platform and what this platform represents to us in the public safety platform. And for that, I thank you, and I'm grateful that you're in this arena.
Well, you're quite welcome. And thank you for all that you're doing. And I'm just going to keep seeing. I'm going to keep watching.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
With that, thank you so much, Major, for coming on. This won't be the last time you'll be on, because I'd like to see 6 months to a year from now, see where you are.
Absolutely.
See if you can come back and say you are the Lake County Sheriffs now. There's a new sheriff in town.
There will be.
All right. With that, thank you so much. Don't go anywhere, Major. We'll be back. Wow, that was a full of life person, individual that certainly is a servant leader at his best. And he truly has been an example. I'm not here to win any votes, because I'm not running for office. I'm not here to get paid to say this. I just call it what I see. And of course, my heart goes out to everybody that's out there, to my men and women of blue, from the city, from the county, from the state police. Thank you for serving. Thank you for keeping us safe. And I'm going to keep you all in prayer. I'm not going to hate you. I'm going to love you. And so, because you can't change that from me. But I just want to say thank you for all our men and women in blue that are out there serving and doing what they have to serve and protect. With that, I got to go, people. Thank you for watching The Face of a Hero Show. We'll be back next Thursday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Till next time, see you.